Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer. And today, I was going to answer the question. Yes, I am gatekeeping the arts from you. And you know who you are. Now, if you're an artist, well, you fear not. However, if you're the kind of person that falls into one of the things that I'm going to talk about later today, you better watch your back. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Limelight, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt. You write a short story using that prompt, and the first Monday video of the month is dedicated to your guys' creativity. Get it out there. You guys are incredible. The second way to be featured is if you're an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit the first chapter and the cover, including, it can be a comic, it will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more people find your work and direct them to where they can get more, because your work needs to be discovered and the audience is there. It's just being able to find it. The third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books, Judge Me. They're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including the library, on request, or OneDrive. And with that said, let's get into this. Now, it's going to be a bit rough, but I'm going to lay out what I've seen and why I've seen it. I never claim to be correct. I just try to give you what I see and why I see it the way that I do, to hopefully induce conversation, and maybe I learn things, maybe I'm understood a little more, or, you know, maybe I shoot myself in the foot because, let's face it, I'm just not that great at talking. But before we get into that, I also need to come clean because, okay, this is a thing. I've noticed an influx of you recently. And an influx of you, of that influx, have noticed that something is off about me. In fact, many of you have talked about my name. How is there a girl named Ian? Ian's not a girl name. Well, I've determined there's no denying it any longer, and I must come clean. You are correct. I am not a feminine. I am based. Sorry. I didn't know how to be cringier than calling yourself based, so, you know, here we are in all of my glory. Feel free to bask in the confusion of how I've got a six-pack, you know, this. You want to take me? You really want to take me? Let's go. You see these moves? I don't think that you could. Now that I'm all warmed up and prepared, it's time to go. Safety first, kids. Remember, friggin' safety first. We don't want head damage. We've taken enough of that. Let's be real. I know now that the shirt is off, this is what you would like to see. My eyes are up here. So we're going to try to do a happy medium here, okay? Enjoy this. And don't stare at my nipples, please. I'm going to mention a couple different things that clue me in on somebody being into the arts for less than pure reasons. Because, yeah, lots of things can bring you to the arts. Lots of things can make you inspired. But these are the things that make me not trust you. Number one, you only listen to your friends and complain about it. Is it true? I don't know. But you see things like this. And there are a lot of opiners on YouTube that complain about popular television shows or have made their entire channel's life work complaining about Marvel, DC, Disney, Pixar, just the big people. They repeat the same ideas, they repeat the same problems, and they repeat the same solutions, which are, hey, me or my friends have the solution. I don't know if these people really don't investigate anything, but you all say the same things, and you act like what was done in an elitist art club is the same thing as what's been happening for the last 10 to 20 years when the indie scene has really taken off and been able to populate. All you got to do is throw a rock on Twitter and you see art being made all the time. Like, that is the thing that pisses me off the most, is I see these opiners saying there is no real art. Art is dead today. And I log into Twitter and all I see are artists posting. You know why? Because I follow a bunch of art Twitters and I click art Twitters and I click in, hey, share your newest art. And then I go and follow even more artists. So my Twitter is just full of artists, and I hire artists and I look at art, and that's almost all that I see. So when I see the opiners say that nothing new is being created, culture is stagnant, there are no new ideas, it's all just remakes and rehashes and sequels, are you even looking? I've got over 70 different books listed on the Fresh Meat feature that are all fresh, brand new ideas by people who are creating today. It's not that hard to find new content. I mean, it can be because there's a lot of garbage out there as well, but people are creating en masse. And so to say that nobody is creating and it's all rehashes and it's all garbage, you're only paying attention to the mainstream. And maybe that's because that's your bread and butter. If you weren't complaining about the mainstream, then you'd have nothing to complain about, right? Instead of like looking at these new things. Or is it because you haven't had any of your buddies tell you how to feel about the independent stuff, but you know how to feel about the mainstream stuff? And it's not just that. I go to art museums when I can, and I see all kinds of art, local and international works. I can't help the feeling that you don't look because you don't care. This blindness that's going on with the opiners about art feels so much like the same thing going on with a female character issue that I covered a couple of weeks ago with Sydney Watson and a couple of others. The easiest and best example to reach for is when they use Lizelle from Baldur's Gate 3 as an example of female characters being made ugly on purpose. Number one, Lizelle has a rockin' body. If you have seen her in her underwear, okay, she's fine. Number two, her entire race looks like that. You pick the character who is an orc to make fun of and say all women are ugly in modern games. Number three, not only do you take Lizelle as your example of ugly female characters, but then you ignore Shadowheart and Karla and every other female character in that game who is attractive. So then you only focus on the one and then say all female characters are attractive. And that tells me that you are not paying attention, you do not care. Or you are so blind by your anger and hatred and your political ideology that you can't see the truth. So you have to just focus in on this one thing. And I don't know if that's the reason why none of you see the art being made. None of you are looking into the art being made. But when I see opiners say that there's no new art, nobody's creating art, everything is stagnant, everything's elitist, and then insulting, and this ties into the AI generated stuff because a lot of the AI bros say that it's all an art club and it's all elitists that are all just exploiting and angry and mediocre, when it's not. You're stealing from a wonderful, incredible, creative people, and you're insulting them. And I don't know if it's because you refuse to go and investigate or because you don't care and it's hatred and it's jealousy and it's whatever. But it's clearly there. It's blindness for me, what I see as an outsider who only focuses on mostly the creative and also being a cringe merchant, I see blindness from political brain rot. And what that does is it makes you see the worst possible thing in everything that you do. It doesn't matter if you're on one side and you watch characters interact and you call it internalized misogyny or internalized racism, or it's on this other side where you're saying everything is disgusting and poorly created and just modern, postmodern garbage art. You're doing the same thing. And it's blindness because the political brain rot makes you take everything that you see in the worst possible way if it doesn't specifically align to you. And I see it on both sides of the extreme ends. I just want to say all of the sides on the extreme ends so we don't like pick anybody. It's a prism. It's a prism of brain rot. Or you're dishonest. Like, those are your choices. And I'm not able to assume which because brain rot is really strong. You can delude yourself into really believing that you are this victim because a female character does not get you hard. And it's so easy to delude yourself into this false sense of reality that you're so desperate that it becomes pathological, that you see a disagreement and you're like, this has to be the reason why. You see somebody disagreeing with you, or you see somebody saying something that may apply to you and you pathologically assign it to you because you have such a victimhood status that you assume everything is being said about you, to you, and your core. And politics just makes everybody more angry and more sensitive and gets them trapped in this death spiral of hating everyone and everything. Nothing is good enough and everything will always victimize you at the end. Get out. I beg of you, get out. On the aspect of never caring about art, not all art is political. So I've talked about it a couple times before. You'll see in a lot of the book reviews that I do, especially on controversial books, I really only talk about the elements that are within the story and how they work in the story. I don't care if the elements are controversial. I don't care if the elements are political in nature one way or another. I'm just talking about how they fit in the story, because an author will never be able to divorce themselves, their ideology, their religion, their anything from their work entirely. It will always be there. I could point out the different things about the way that I think that are in my books, and maybe we'll do that someday. Somebody could also take all of that stuff in the worst possible way. Is that what I intended? No. Does that happen with art? Absolutely. But that's also why you kind of take items in a book apart from the author, discuss the items, and then possibly, if you can, discuss with the author. Though most of the time, if you don't like a book, authors don't want to talk to you. And it's like, well, whatever. But I get really sick of people approaching me saying, no, all art is political or personal persuasion. It's not. It is if you want. And that goes back to the political brain rot that you need to get out of. But it's not all political, especially not this time, this place, this whatever. Why do you think something from 100 years ago is applicable now? Because it's not political. It's not specific to that time period. It's a human experience. But people are so desperate to make human experiences political. Freaking Avatar Way of the Water came out, and I had people telling me that the idea of family was specifically right-wing, that it was a right-wing concept to have a family, to want a family. No, that's just a human experience. And when you do this, when you make everything political like this, you're not only claiming basic human operations, basic human parts of life as being our side or your side or their side, but you are also claiming that it has to do with and your time, place, and geography. Because most of this political opining that turns into the analysis of literature has to do with the Western world and specifically America. I'm sorry, when I'm writing stories, I would like us to bond over the characters, bond over the human experiences. I hope that you like the characters. I hope that you like the storytelling. And it's not about politics. Because guess what? I've got characters in other countries. Friggin' Jan is from Ukraine. I've got a couple different sets of characters in Japan. Current American politics has no place in my story that I'm writing with Monty that's set in 1889 America, because the problems are not the same. It just dates it. It just makes it stuck. And it's not, if not everything is a political comment about today. I mean, I know that it can be hard to understand that when you got stuff like Out of Darkness, which is written as 1930 whatever it is and pretends to be a statement on racism today, and it's not. That's just false advertising. But not everything is political. And you start making this system where you have to purity test whoever you're talking to see what they believe and try to out them and see if they're our guy or your guy. And it's fine if you want to assume everything is political, but everybody doesn't. And it only hurts you and your interpretation of other people and your understanding of other people to assume this political aggression as the basis for your approach to things. Not to mention, some of these channels like Lotus Eater or even Daily Wire want to pretend that they suddenly care about art when they don't. You want to talk about art, influence, and pop culture? Let's see some of you talk about how Twilight led to the dystopian craze, which led to whatever came after dystopian, which is now the freaking Fae phase. Because there are so many stories right now that are about Fae and falling in love in captivity, especially with teenagers. Looking at you. You know who you are. Talk about how these crazes both influence the romanticization of abusive relationships or of relationships in general, how they influence relationships between men and women generally, because the stuff that is given to teenagers influences their expectations when they become adults and also when they're in relationships. But we're not seeing those conversations because these people only read books and have book clubs for either nonfiction books or political books that were written 50 or plus years ago, like Fahrenheit 451 or 1984. Try opening your horizons and talking about the things that are actually influencing culture, like ACOTAR. Could you imagine any of these opiners reading freaking ACOTAR? Oh my gosh. They don't even pick up the books for the freaking ALA. Okay. But what I have noticed in these people that opine on the arts and the state of art is they don't talk about anything that is modern books, modern culture, except for Marvel and DC. That is it. And let me tell you, what happens in books happens in the mainstream 10 to 15 years later. So I hate to tell you this, but you're not reading ACOTAR now? You will be seeing the Fae romance, whatever it is, in movie theaters near you in the next 5 to 10 years. In some cases, you all have called it evil and a waste of time. Looking at you, Daily Wire with Matt Walsh. There's such a disrespect for arts among the political opiners that I don't even know how to get into it. Calling anime evil. We all remember 15, 20 years ago when video games were the evil thing. It's storytelling, okay? If you're gonna tell me that this storytelling of this video game where I can be the Yakuza doing things in the neighborhood is suddenly going to inspire me to go and do crimes, then are we gonna talk about the incest in the Bible? Do we not get to have stories that have imperfect people in them? Yes or no? Let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. Number 4, art for these people is either a commercial product or a bludgeoning tool. I would like to first bring up Ben Shapiro right now saying how he needs to rush to make a Snow White to compete with Disney's Snow White.
So we got the idea for it literally the day that Rachel Zegler did an interview in which she said that she hated the original Snow White and wanted to rip the guts out of it. And then Disney released those ridiculous cast photos of dwarves that were not dwarves, the multiracial, multi-ethnic, tall people and one dwarf. And it was at that point that this is how we make decisions at the Daily Wire. I literally just emailed that to my business partner, Jeremy Boring, and I was like, we should do something like this. And Jeremy's like, okay, we're just going to make Snow White. So we decided that we were going to do a very rushed movie of Snow White, but we're going to do it to all the specs, with music, with singing, with the original storyline in classic fashion that imbibes from the original well of the values. Specifically because if Disney wants to cede that field to us, we'd be fools not to take it. And we're kind of shocked by the fact that no other studio has done that. I mean, just on a pure market basis. If you have one of the most significant film achievements of all time, one of the most popular movies of all time, and the people who are making the remake of that movie in live action fashion have decided to betray that movie and say out loud, it's not even like a surprise, they're saying out loud, we want to betray this movie, we don't like the original values that a woman is reliant on a man, she's a girl boss who's going to be, I don't know, fighting the witch on her own, and the prince is going to be standing off to the side, if there is a prince at all, and if she's not a transgender, non-binary, Snow White, whatever. Like, it would be idiotic not to go back to, the thing that works, and do the thing that works in the face of the thing that clearly is not going to work. And Disney has a horrible habit of doing this. They keep taking some of the greatest IP of all time, and they're still living off the money from that IP, right? I mean, they're putting up on Disney Plus all these placards ahead of Aladdin saying this movie is super offensive, but I saw they didn't take down the movie, right? They still know that we all want to subscribe so that our kids can watch the original Aladdin. So they're making money off of it, but then they'll make the live action Aladdin, make it way worse for a quick money grab. Well, if I can essentially grab, if our company can grab the legacy of the original Snow White, then why would we not do that? We should do that.
Because, right, when everybody is complaining about creative bankruptcy and the inability to do anything other than brand new stories, it's all just freaking remakes and sequels and retellings. When that's the problem that everybody's had for the last 10 to 15 years specifically, especially, then the thing to do is say, oh, they're making a blue Snow White. Well, we're going to make a red version of Snow White. You're not creating a cohesive culture. You're not creating art that people can gather together around. You're creating more hate, more division to own the libs. It's disgusting. And not only that, but you're saying that stuff over there is actually going to brainwash you, so you're not allowed to touch it. But come touch our stuff that is politically driven, written in our way, but it's not going to brainwash you. It's not meant to be a bludgeoning tool, but we're going to put the values that we want in it instead. How about just telling a story? Or how about approaching artists that tell the kinds of stories that you like and supporting them as they make art? There was once upon a time this thing called Patrons of the Arts, where it was elitists that found artists that did what they liked, and then they just funded it, and then let the artists do their work, instead of making it a commercial enterprise. I don't think the answer to creative bankruptcy is more creative bankruptcy, is making direct ripoffs of things like Snow White, is watching what Disney is doing and then saying, oh, we'll do what Disney's doing, but we'll do it our way, and then we'll say that it's better. You don't care, and it shows that you don't care. You just see creating art as a way to either manipulate people or to get more money. You're running your entertainment section in the same way that Disney is and has been, that you've been complaining about. But it's fine because you're doing it. The other thing is, if we look at something like Ripaverse, personally, I think Ripaverse is a scam. And I will tell you why. Because you have to buy all of the side products, all of the little miniature things in order to get the full story. It doesn't, having read ISOM 1 and 2, and I'll read the third one to look for the whole arc, and maybe if you're lucky, I'll pick up the other books to see how other other writers do with the story. But at this moment, I don't feel any promise of a full story being told. Because stuff is specifically being left out, and characters are being introduced in order to sell more copies of other things. In the first copy of ISOM by Eric July, you have the introduction of Yara, who did absolutely nothing to the story. She just popped in, threw Avery, and then flew off. And then you had the introduction of Alpha Core, who also popped in, disappeared, don't know anything about them, didn't contribute to Avery's story at all. And guess who the first side comics are that are being introduced? Yara and Alpha Core. So it's entirely, and half of both book 1 and book 2, it feels like, we're introducing new characters, new plot lines to stem off into other stories in order to sell you a universe. It's not selling you a story or a character or an individual and getting you invested to want to go and learn more. And at this point, for me, knowing that, one, there's important information on the side cards that you're required to purchase. Two, you look at all of the bonus content of supporting his thing, and you see that it's just more stuff that you have to buy, because it's all a scheme to get you to buy more. I recently supported Sam Yang's Kickstarter for his art book, and as he hit more and more of his goals, he started including more stuff that he was just going to send to you with your initial support box. So it's stuff like sticky notes and stickers and a book wrap and all of the stuff that automatically comes with your order, because it's hit a goal. It's a thank you for supporting us, so here is a gift. The same thing happened when I supported Cyberfrog. Is Ethan Van Sciver hit his different goals, and it just added more and more and more bonus stuff around the comic books that I was supporting, and I ended up getting a lot of extra stuff like stickers and a little action figure and all sorts of stuff. That also sometimes comes with a foil cover becomes an upgrade. Like, I've had a foil cover upgrade on a different book that I've supported before. That's usually how stretch goals work, is it's bonus content as a thank you. It's not stuff like, I promise in the future I may or may not do animations. I promise in the future maybe action figures someday. I promise that if we hit this amount of money that we will just reveal to you somebody's book early, and then you'll have to buy their book later when it comes out. I promise more stuff for you to buy, basically. Like, it's fine, but that's a business. That's not, you're not in it for the arts. And if you're not going to sell me the story, the full story that's contained within itself, you can have a cliffhanger. But if you're not going to sell me a story itself, and you're going to keep saying, well, buy this if you want to understand, well, buy this if you want to fully understand, well, you're going to have to buy 20 million copies in order to understand what is going on. It's scammy to me, and it's just there to make money. And I'm sorry, I don't take you seriously. Another thing that stands out to me when I'm looking at these opiners is they do not hide their distaste. And I've seen this a lot too in my responses that I've received for the Shadiversity video on generative AI, and specifically on the critiques that I had for Shad's book, Shadow of the Conqueror, and also for the Eric July books, where it's an assumption that it's a political response, where it's an assumption that I only dislike him because of personal reasons, or maybe the comments that are saying that are because of the other comments in the comments section. The thing is, if you assume that any criticism of a person's work is political, and then you have built your channel off of criticizing other people's artworks, then it puts into question the validity of your criticism. Because do you really think that these movies are bad, or are you going after them because of their politics? Because you very openly criticize their politics. So now everything has come into question. It also doesn't help when you have such a distaste for literally every artist in the way that Shad does on his page for artists. Another thing that annoys me with the opiners is it's all American politics, and they're not timeless or global. I mentioned this earlier, where if you insert politics from today's time and date into everything that you do, and you do it the current lens of everything, it's just as cringe as somebody from today looking at a book written 150 years ago and holding it to today's standards of mannerisms, of ethics, of whatever it is you want to call it. You can't do that. American politics don't have a place in everything, and they're actually isolating. Not just to me. I'm American, and I don't want to see American politics in everything that I read. But it also makes it very close-minded for going into other countries, other cultures, other time places. Is your Donald Trump is the bad guy? Is your Donald Trump is the bad guy story going to be timeless and meaningful in 15 years? No, it's not. And I remember in freaking 2017 when everybody and their mother were freaking doing collections of Donald Trump is a bad person books, collections. That was in 2016. It was around the time that I finished graduate school, because AWP was obsessed. And I knew so many people in university that were collecting stuff specifically for those types of collections. And it was cringe, okay? It's not going to be relevant in even freaking 5 years. But, you know, you make that money, I guess. Another thing that comes into consideration with how I look at art is there is a difference between art and art-like products. They're not the same, and I'm not going to call them the same thing. Art is genuine. Art-like product looks like an art, but it is actually just a product. I've seen too many creators jump on people who did not like their stuff and then call them haters because it affects their business. And that's what they see it as. It is all for money and popularity. And I have yet to see somebody do that who thinks otherwise, who treats it otherwise. As if you go hater to anybody that just doesn't like your thing, who just talks about your book in a less than positive way, I think that you're in it for the money. I've been mistreated more times than I can count by authors that say, hey, read my stuff, or they keep pushing their stuff out. And I go, okay, I'll take a look at it. I read it, not a fan of it. And then I get called a hater. And then I get ganged up on because it's ruining their business to say something. There are a crazy number of people in this industry at this moment, specifically that are the business people or the political people who cannot take criticism. They talk about subjective opinion while building their entire platforms off of insulting mainstream works, like they are the arbiters of things. They will say stuff like, oh, your opinion is just subjective and good writing is only subjective, but then act like all of the compliments that they have received are objective. And all of the criticisms that they lob at the mainstream stuff are objective. But you not liking their book is subjective. And so you are wrong. This tells me that you are new to the space. Everybody is going to not please somebody sometimes more than others, me especially. People can dislike works for the same reason that you like them and vice versa. Someone can say, I didn't like this because there was too much sex in it, while somebody else goes, I love this because of all the sex that was in it. Someone could say, I didn't like this story because there was too much exposition and world building, while someone else might say, I hated this because there was too much exposition and world building. It's like you said, objective. But if somebody can objectively, it's like you said, subjective. But if somebody can subjectively like something in a book, then they can also subjectively hate it. And that doesn't make either or better. You just have to figure out who your target audience is and who you're appealing to and how to better write the story and tell the story that you're trying to tell. Sometimes you want all of that exposition and that background, but you got to figure out a better way to put it in. And that might help you figure out, oh, there is a big chunk right here that slows things down. Maybe I can spread this out. Or maybe you go, you know what? This is how I like to write, so this is fine. That comment's not really helpful. The thing that you need to do is you need to learn how to say thank you for the criticism if it's said to your face, and then you move on, because even if you're not going to use it, you just say thank you. You know how many times I've sat in a critique circle and just like, you just say thanks, and then you go through, you know, what you need and what you don't need and discard everything you don't need, but you just always say thanks. Oh my gosh, there was this time in undergraduate school when I was in creative writing. Oh, it was a workshop. And obviously in most creative writing workshops, you are not allowed to talk while your piece is being discussed because they don't want you to argue with the critiquers. It just doesn't matter. Honestly, if you have to explain yourself after the fact, then your point didn't get across to them and you either need to reevaluate or they're not your target audience. And because this one girl was being critiqued and she wasn't allowed to talk, her friend would always start arguing with other people's critiques in her stead. And then when it was the other girl's turn, they switched. Not cool. If you want to make the argument that somebody's opinion is subjective, then you can't use that to invalidate someone else's opinions without invalidating your own. Just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean that they're disingenuous. It just means that it's a different perspective. Maybe try talking to them to see why they felt the way that they did, instead of going, you're lying, or you're doing it for or you're doing it for a biased reason. We all receive critical and harsh reviews or feedback, or we fail at doing what we think we did very clearly. Take a breath, evaluate your work to see if it's where you thought that it was after you've received those feedbacks from people that don't know you, and then move on. And for the love of the world, stop using your political leaning or your political opinions as some sort of excuse or shield for being a victim. Because when you go, oh, I am very outspoken about being conservative and or liberal, so I know that my opinions are being attacked because of my political leanings. No, stop. When you put that foot forward and say that is the only reason you're being attacked, and then you run a channel that criticizes other people for being too woke, it invalidates all of what you say. Because it makes it seem like that's why you criticize anybody, because that's the only reason you can see why anyone might criticize you. Some people claim, sometimes there are claims of cultural stagnation from the people who never actually look at art being made today. It's amazing how you'll claim a problem exists while ignoring the hundreds of thousands of people who have been making art for the last 20, 30, 40, forever million years, and then say the only ones who can solve the issue are either you or your friends selling your rip-off garbage product that you've only just started working on since 2020 in order to pion the people that you don't like. Support your friends. Totally fine. Totally legit to say, hey, my friend is making this, check this out. I think it's pretty cool. But this isn't a statement against that. But I'm replacing the mainstream with this because I like your politics, not the story. shows your hand. And I have seen people say, look, I don't care about this product. I don't care if the story is bad. I'm supporting this comic in order to support the politics of this person. Okay, then you're no better than the people that you're fighting against who only support bad movies because they agree with the politics. Do you want good movies and television? Do you want good books and comics? Then you got to support the comics where they're good. You got to support the arts where they're good, not because of politics. And then not say that you support this greatest thing ever and then say that you don't read it because you support the politics, not the actual arts, which also goes into the showing open disdain for the arts. Is you never actually support the arts. You just support the creator because they got your politics. Cool. Great. Thanks. Thanks. Despite your obsessions with the culture war and influence, none of you have any idea why things ever become popular. That's become clear. Or why characters are influential or inspiring or become beloved. You want to do it, but you don't understand how or why people love those things. So you try to astroturf your characters to the top with politics, and you make separate but equal in the same small pond of other politically brain-dead people who are desperate to be validated by randos on the internet who say what they are thinking. Not because you believe it, but because you know that it'll get people to throw money at you. Going back to the producers, you see the trend chasers using other people's names, other people's products to try and stick your head in that game to make that money. It doesn't have to be insincere to be inspired by other people because that happens all the time. You don't choose what inspires you, but it can be easily identified as a business move depending on how you go about it. Maybe you've seen some of the success of ACOTAR with its, over 1 million star ratings on Goodreads with how popular it is. I'm surprised it doesn't have a movie, to be honest with you. But so you see that popularity, you see other people putting their hands in the Fey pie. Now you're going to try to get your own. That looks questionable. Not every Fey story is going to be trend chasing, but many of them are. I want to connect with people through art. I want to see experiences and stories and voices and characters that I couldn't get anywhere else. It's the thing that I enjoy the most out of reading. It's the reason I pick up books. It's the reason I pick up books after getting to know a person, because I want to know them more. I want to see the world as they see it, to see the things that they create. I don't expect the characters to be paradigms of virtue. I don't expect the characters to be kind. I don't expect the characters to be heroes. I just want to see the kinds of things that a person does when they're given full authority and control. And maybe I'll like it, and maybe I won't. But my liking a book doesn't have anything to do with the person, because it's also not just your creativity. There is a skill involved in putting all those elements together skillfully. If you are somebody who uses the arts as just an opportunity to make money, you're a 20 to 50K person, you're a person that sees whatever's popular and rushes out as many books as possible in order to try to catch that wind and fly to the top. If you are one of these people who has insulted art and artistry for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and now suddenly you see an opportunity to strike and you're going to compete with those box offices by making your politically painted correct version of the same thing, a knockoff version of what somebody else is doing, I'm judging you. Am I gatekeeping? Yes, I am. You're business people, and I get that. You're always going to be more successful than me, and I completely understand that. That's just the way of most artists. You're here for the business, which means you're going to succeed more, likely, because you got the marketing know-how, you got the business know-how, you got the drive to dominate that I just don't have. And you're doing the business thing. Congratulations. Congratulations. But if you ever wonder what contributes when I say I don't think somebody is an artist, this is part of that. You can be business people and artists. But when you fall into some of these categories, when I see certain behaviors, I don't think you are. And another thing that's funny is I did reviews of the whole collection of ALA books from 2021 and 2022. ALA is the American Library Association, and they've been in charge of like the banned books collection, marking down what books have been requested removal from schools for like the last 30 years. I reviewed books like Genderqueer, Beyond Magenta, This Book is Gay, The Hate You Give, Out of Darkness, ACOTAR 1 and 2. I think 2 was the only one on the list recently though. I was so sure that I was going to be facing some responses of offense, some responses of claims of some isms because of just talking about these books and maybe being critical of them. But instead, the bigger response that I've received has not been anybody who might like gender queer or beyond magenta or this book is gay or the hate you give. The biggest responses have been from fans of Shad Brooks and Eric July, who feel like they need to go out and evangelize for their favorite creators. I think the biggest response that I've had for any of the other risque books was for When No One Is Watching, and that was by Alyssa Cole, who was a member of the RWA, and that was during the time where the RWA, which is the Romance Writers of America, the association, the guild, when it was going through a huge transitory time where they were accusing various people of being racist, removing them from the board of directors. They had a whole board of directors mix up around the Christmas of 2018. I have some videos on that if you want to check it out. But other than that, the worst responses I've had from readers so far have been the audiences of Shad Brooks and Eric July. And that's a little bit funny. I get it. I get it so much. And there's an inability to hear that someone just didn't like what you did, because you put so much thought and so much effort and so much time into building that thing. It's normal to have like this gut reaction, especially when it's something that you enjoy, and you can like something that's poorly put together. You can like something for its flaws, despite its flaws. You can like something for any reason whatsoever. That's normal. But when you view art like product, like a business, and then attack everybody who says they didn't like your item and kind of threaten their future because they didn't shut up, kind of sketchy. I think people deserve better than secondhand stories or thoughtless garbage made by people for money who only see an opportunity to cash in on the rage, frustration, and anger of others. I'm not a solution to this problem of remakes and reboots and disrespect in the art community. I'm just a poor artist that you already laugh at. For being weird, for being stupid, for being poor, for my name, for my abs that you are so freaking jealous of. You can gatekeep the business and the money, and I can call you what I see. Anyone here for the art, storytelling, experimentation, expression, the understanding, the attempt at exchanging ideas and thoughts and practices and everything. We may not create each other's enjoyment. We may not create anything that has to do with each other's choice genres, but we aren't creating for the same people, and that's fine. We are at least creating for the same goal, and I will always be here for that. We all don't have to serve the same people. We all don't have the same kind of creativity, and that's fine. But for the rest of you who come in here for political bludgeoning tools or mass commercial production, and that's nothing against artists wanting to make money and live off their art. Artists deserve to live off their art and not have to do two jobs in perpetuity. There's a difference between creating art and hoping to live off it versus mass producing content. But that's a different video. This will always be a place for artists. I love art. I love characters. I love storytelling. I have, I talked about political brain rot. I have character brain rot. I have story brain rot. And I could not talk about my characters enough. I am both excited and exhausted to write my characters more. It's so much. And I wish that I was better at art already, but it just takes time. It takes time and effort and continually showing up. For the people here that have come for mass production, for the people that have come to the art industry specifically for mass commercial production, who are part of the AI garbage that want to use that to make themselves rich while stealing from others, or the people who have come for the political bludgeoning tool that they want to use to manipulate and brainwash the masses because they saw the other guys doing it, well, we're going to do it now. Know that I see you. And I'm not going to be coerced or threatened into being quiet like this guy tried to do, saying what, my career is over because I reviewed a book 10 months ago? I'm not going to hold what a fan says against a creator because Shad didn't do this. People are their own. But if this is how the group operates, and know that you are representing his group of fans when you're like this, with fear and control and threat that you will be blacklisted and ganged up on or not allowed to play a certain game because you're not towing the line, you're not an alternative to the elitist group that you rage against. You're the same. Painted a different color. Threat to support or die makes everything you do or the groups that you support look illegitimate because it makes everyone who operates alongside you look insincere, politically driven, and like liars. That if you don't lie, if you also don't join the lie, they'll never play with you. They'll never let you succeed, and they never want you. And that's exactly what the people they rage against say. What I see through the political opiners that are trying to take advantage of the art industry right now, I see a bunch of creatively bankrupt and possibly morally bankrupt individuals, seeking validation through each other while tearing down perceived opponents for no reason but power. And sometimes that means dragging your own brother too, because he's actually an artist and you're not. It's sad. And I won't put it past anybody. If I see some change in behavior, maybe I'll consider you an artist. But so long as you act like this, you're either a business owner or attempting political influence. And I'm not listening. I'm not playing. I want a person. I want a connection. Not whatever this is. You're either a business owner or attempting political influence, and I'm not listening. So hey, maybe stick around, maybe don't. I just like to talk about books, creative writing, things related to that. I will be very cringy. But I hope that I hope that brings something. Because I just love this stuff so much. And I hope that I get to share more. With that said, let me know your thoughts down below. I just kind of have had it with the political opiners, the specifically wearing the attire from artists that they've punched and drop kicked and then stolen from. And I'm just not playing that game. You can have your opinions, you can like the things that you like, and I'm not gonna be bullied into the silence. Am I right? Probably not. But I'm gonna let you know what it is that I'm seeing, and maybe somebody can change my mind on what I'm seeing. But right now, it's telling me everything is political, telling me they did it first, so we're gonna do it, telling me that all artists are actually just mediocre and or extortionists, not gonna win me over. That's coming on Saturday's video. Be creative, have fun, practice up. You will get to where you want to go as long as you continue to practice and believe in yourself. Even through the hard days, you can do it. Let's finish our 2023 goals before the end of the year, huh? For me, that is the revision of Body Wars Hero, to get it out of freaking revision. That said, let me know what your end of the year goals are for creativity, for building, if you're not a creative. Or share a title of a book or a comic or a movie that you really, really like. One of my favorite television shows is Pushing Daisies, because the way that Ned and Chuck are written is so sweet. I love the magical realism of that, the simplicity in when Ned touches things, they come back to life. One of my favorite shows of all time. Tropic Thunder, also one of my favorites. But you know, I love the magical realism and I love friggin' satire, and those two do it. Also, oh, Cabin in the Woods, the newer one. I love that. I love that they had a boomer in there too. Anyway, share some of your favorites. Celebrate creativity. And one final note on this is that the ideas and the people behind the corporatized art product, the 20 to 50K, spring stuff into the system as quickly as you possibly can to try to get as much attention as you possibly can, especially by putting it close together. It's called rapid releasing, and it's done very commonly. It's also done in movies. One of the things that is the most disappointing, though, is that all of these people that started out as individuals, that started out as saying they were against the machine, against Hollywood, against Marvel and DC and Disney, for putting out garbage, they're now doing the same thing, where they're going to just pump out stuff as quickly as they can to make the money while they can, while you're a sucker, and they're selling you hope. They're taking advantage of your hope if you're buying into this stuff, because they don't care about you and they don't care about the arts. And for the AI art people, which is going to come up eventually because that's part of this situation, creating art isn't about the money. That's not to say that artists don't want and don't deserve money for their labor. But if you're an artist, you don't create for the money. You don't get into art, the creation of visual arts, of acting, of literary arts in order to make money. That's a great byproduct if it happens, but the majority of us know that we will never make a living off of doing the arts. And so we subsidize our arts, our passion for arts, by having regular jobs. And so then when it comes to stuff like corporatism, which will always stamp out the little guys and the artists because the corporations have the money, when it comes to that, when it comes to stuff like the AI, which is just corporations trying to take art again in another way, and the untalented, the uncaring, the greedy trying to take it in another way, when you come and say, hey, you're going to be obsolete because of this, you can't make artists obsolete. Because what artists do is they take experiences, emotions, personality, mental state, and put them in memories and put them into a medium to transfer to somebody else. You can't make artists obsolete because machines and corporations can't do what the artist does. And so maybe you'll determine that you will support an artist to see the vision that they have. And maybe you'll get tired of being taken advantage of being sold rehashes and remakes and garbage that nobody cares about. And the only reason that those things exist is because that corporation wants your money, and this is how they separate you from it. By presenting you with an art-like product that you're not going to be happy with because it's not what your soul was looking for. And yes, this is a bit more on the woo-woo side because it has to be, because it's about the human experience. So if you say, hey, you're going to be replaced by this, or you're going to be downtrodden by this, or you're going to be pounded out by these people, these political figures that are trying to brainwash you with the propaganda, that are the corporations that are trying to throw out the garbage and wash the system and flood the entire system with their stuff to take your stuff, know that as an artist, you can't be replaced. And if you're one of the people that is saying artists can be replaced, you have no idea what you're talking about. And it shows when you say stuff like that. Because art is not about money. Though we all do hope to make it someday, at least a comfortable living so we're not working 2 to 3 jobs in perpetuity. But that's the thing, is don't take saying it's not about the money to mean we don't wish to be paid for the labor that we do, for the things that are consumed. That's great. But there's a huge difference between saying, hey, I wish that I could get paid for this, and somebody saying, I'm going to go follow the trends and I'm going to pump out stuff as quickly as possible that follows the trends, that uses the buzzwords, that tries to popularize themselves off of other people's names, that try to catch that wave of popularity that is sweeping through it at any given time. These people have always been around. I can't tell you how many other writers I've been around who have said, well, it's great that you can do it for the art, but baby, I got bills to pay. Sweetie, I do too. But the imperative to create is too strong. And that's what it's about for me. It's not about following trends. It's not about selling things. It's not about lying to people about product to get it out of my hands and to put money in pockets. It is about me trying to share the things that I impulsively create and the stories and the characters that I love. And that is what is behind these cherished characters and these cherished ideas and these adventures and the bravery and the courage and the traits that are always admired. It's the passion coming from the creator, which I think personally is one of the reasons why franchises often die when they get handed to somebody who is not the original creator, because the next person that holds it doesn't carry the same respect and love for that thing that they have brought forward. So they can't put the soul into it that it needs. Now, some people can carry that job on, but most can't, because it's a difficult job to fill the shoes of someone else's story with the same level of that care. Anyway, that's why art is art, product is product. There's a difference between art-like products and art. And artists will always be necessary. So if any of you guys watching this are artists, never give up. You're important. And if anybody that doesn't believe in art is watching this, well, that's all I gotta say. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left. Plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?